The stars burned cold and distant as the galactic fleet gathered near the edge of the Sol system. Hundreds of alien ships drifted in formation, their metallic hulls glowing faintly blue under the light of a nearby sun. The commanders of the Empire were confident, almost arrogant. To them, this mission was nothing more than a demonstration, a warning to a small, unimportant world called Earth. The humans had refused to kneel before the Empire, and for that, they would be erased. At least, that was the plan. Admiral Zeroth of the Dranath Dominion watched his tactical screens with a cruel smile. His ship, the Vengeance of Stars, led the invasion fleet. Humans are primitive, he said to his officers. They have only one small fleet and no allies. This will be over before breakfast. His officers laughed. The sound echoed through the bridge like music to their pride. But deep in the darkness beyond the scanner range, something moved, something silent. Humanity had not been idle. For months, they had watched the growing fleet at the edge of their system. Every satellite, every outpost, every listening post on the Moon and Mars had recorded the Empire's buildup. Humans were not afraid, they were preparing. Earth had fought wars before, long before the galaxy even knew its name. Humans knew how to lose, how to adapt, and how to win. And this time, they were ready to show the galaxy what that meant. As the alien fleet advanced, human transmissions remained silent. The Empire sent messages demanding surrender, but no reply came. Instead, every alien ship received a strange signal, just static at first, then a single line of text, "Do not approach further." Admiral Zeroth laughed. Empty threats. Fire a warning volley. 1,000 plasma bolts crossed space and exploded harmlessly near Mars. Nothing moved. Then, the human fleet appeared. It did not warp in or jump through hyperspace. It simply appeared. Hundreds of dark, angular ships materialized without energy signatures, as if they had always been there, hidden in plain sight. Their hulls were unlike anything in the Empire's database, black like obsidian, reflecting no light, absorbing every scanner pulse. The alien sensors struggled to lock onto them, returning nothing but static. Fear began to creep into Admiral Zeroth's voice. "Identify their energy output," he ordered. "Scan for weapon systems." But the scans failed again and again. The human ships were ghosts, silent, unreadable, and unmoving. Then one of them sent a transmission. A calm human voice spoke across every open frequency, "You are trespassing in Terran space. Leave immediately." The words were simple. The tone was calm. But there was something in that calmness that made even the most battle-hardened alien feel a chill crawl down their spine. Zeroth snarled, trying to hide his unease. "Fire at will." The command echoed through the fleet. Plasma beams, torpedoes, and high-energy cannons filled space with light. Explosions rippled across the void, but when the smoke cleared, the human ships still stood. Not a scratch. The plasma dissipated against an invisible barrier that shimmered for only a second before vanishing again. The Empire's most powerful weapons had done nothing. Then, the human flagship moved forward. Slowly, silently. Its hull bore no name, no markings, just a single glowing symbol, the outline of Earth. A deep rumble passed through the alien communication channels. It was not an explosion. It was a sound, low and heavy, like thunder rolling through the stars. One of the alien sensor officers screamed, "Their energy levels are off the charts. It's impossible." On the screen, the human ship's shield turned black instead of blue. Every known shield in the galaxy glowed when active, blue, green, or gold. Black meant nothing reflected, nothing escaped. It was pure absorption, a shield that consumed energy rather than deflecting it. The Empire's admirals had never seen anything like it. The human fleet held position, weapons still cold. They were not rushing to attack. They were waiting. Humanity was giving the enemy a chance to leave. But pride is a dangerous thing, and the Empire had too much of it. Admiral Zeroth slammed his hand against the console. "I want that ship destroyed." The fleet reorganized. 20 destroyers moved in formation, surrounding the human flagship. Missile bays opened. Railguns charged. The alien ships fired simultaneously, a perfect storm of destruction. When the light faded, the human ship was still there, untouched, floating calmly in the wreckage of burning debris. The alien crews could not understand what they were seeing. Their weapons had failed. Their technology meant nothing. Then the human voice returned, colder this time. Challenge accepted. And with those two words, the entire battlefield changed. A pulse of invisible energy spread from the human flagship, passing through every alien ship in the fleet. Lights flickered. Engines shut down. Weapons went offline. It was as if every ship had been turned off by an unseen hand. Panic spread. Officers shouted. Engineers scrambled to restart systems, but nothing worked. The human fleet began to move, not fast, not aggressive, just slowly drifting through the paralyzed armada. One by one, the disabled alien ships began to power down completely, their lights fading until only darkness remained. Admiral Zeroth stared at the dead screens around him, his heart pounding. For the first time in his life, he felt something he had never known before: fear. The human voice spoke again, softer now, but the words cut through the silence like a blade. "We warned you. We never wanted this. Leave now. This is your only mercy." The communication ended. Every alien ship floated helplessly, surrounded by the silent, black fleet of humanity. The Empire had come to crush a primitive species, but instead, they had met something far older and far more dangerous than they ever imagined. In that moment, every alien in the fleet understood a new truth about the galaxy. Humanity was not to be challenged. They had been tested, and the galaxy was about to regret it. The silence after the first encounter hung heavy across the void. The Empire's fleet drifted helplessly, their engines offline, their pride shattered. The black human ships surrounded them like silent predators in deep space. No one spoke. No one dared. Then, as suddenly as it began, power returned to the alien systems. Lights flickered back to life. Engines hummed weakly. But no one reached for their weapons again. Fear had settled deep into every heart. Admiral Zeroth stood on his bridge, staring at the main screen where the human flagship still hovered, motionless, cold, and patient. "Report," he barked, trying to sound confident. "All systems back online, sir," his officer replied, voice trembling. "But we can't lock onto them. Their ships aren't there. They appear and vanish like shadows." Zeroth clenched his jaw. He could not return to the Council in disgrace. Losing to a newly discovered species would destroy his career, maybe even his life. "Send the message to the fleet," he ordered. "We attack again. This time, we strike first." Across the fleet, captains hesitated. The human ships hadn't fired once. They had disabled hundreds of vessels without killing a single crew member. That kind of power frightened everyone. But no one dared defy an admiral. The fleet reformed into attack formation. Thousands of plasma turrets charged, missiles locked, and long-range cannons aligned toward the human fleet. Zeroth raised his hand. Fire. Space exploded with color. Energy beams, missiles, and magnetic shells streaked through the void toward the human line. The explosions lit the darkness like a sunrise. For a moment, Zeroth smiled. Then his smile vanished. The human ships didn't move. Their shields didn't flicker. The sensors showed no damage, no heat spikes, no reaction. It was as if the attacks had vanished into thin air. The bridge filled with static as human communication channels opened again. A voice spoke, calm and cold. "You were warned." The human flagship released a single pulse of light, soft, blue-white, almost beautiful. It expanded silently, crossing the entire battlefield. The alien fleet braced for impact, but the pulse wasn't destructive. It simply passed through every ship like a wave of mist. Then everything stopped. Weapons shut down. Control panels went dark. Crews tried to speak, but their comms were dead. Even the sound of air recycling systems faded. The Empire's armada was frozen. Only the humans still moved. From the silent flagship, the human commander watched the sensor readings with calm eyes. Non-lethal EMP pulse complete, his officer reported. All enemy systems neutralized. Any losses? The commander asked. None, sir. Their fleet is intact. The commander nodded slowly. Send the message. Across every alien ship, screens flickered on. A human face appeared, young, serious, wearing a dark uniform with a small Earth insignia on the chest. This is Commander Elias Ward of the Terran Defense Command. We do not seek war. You came into our home uninvited. You fired first. Consider this your lesson. The message ended, leaving the alien crews staring at blank screens. Then, one by one, their ships began to drift backward, pushed gently by an invisible force. The humans were sending them away. Admiral Zeroth slammed his fist against the control panel. They're toying with us, he roared. Regain control. But his crew couldn't respond. Nothing worked. Their systems were under human control now. On every ship, the same line appeared on the main screen. We don't start wars. We end them. That single sentence spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Merchant ships whispered it. Miners repeated it. Even the Council heard it within days. The Empire's humiliation became a story that no one could silence. Yet, in their arrogance, the Council of the Empire refused to accept defeat. They claimed the humans had used unethical technology, something forbidden by galactic law. To them, it was impossible that a young, outer-world species could outmatch their power. Pride demanded revenge. The Empire began to rebuild its fleet, larger, stronger, angrier. But while they prepared for war, humanity prepared for something else. On Earth, the United Planetary Defense Council met in secret. The leaders of every human colony gathered through hololinks. They'll come again, Commander Ward said. And next time, they won't hold back. The room was silent for a moment. Then an older admiral spoke. Then we show them what we've been hiding. Beneath the surface of Mars, deep within a red canyon, massive hangars began to open. Inside were warships unlike any seen before, sleek, black, and covered in strange markings. Their engines hummed with a low, steady power that made the air vibrate. Humanity had built these ships in silence for decades, preparing for the day they would need to defend their place among the stars. Meanwhile, the alien spies who escaped Earth space returned to the Empire's high command with trembling voices. They didn't destroy us, one said. They could have, but they didn't. The Emperor listened, his expression unreadable. So they think they're merciful, he hissed. They will learn what mercy costs. He turned to his generals. Mobilize every fleet, every ship, every soldier. We will burn their world until their sun dies. The galaxy began to tremble. Massive dreadnoughts left their shipyards. Supply fleets filled the void between stars. The biggest war the galaxy had ever seen was about to begin. But across the void, humanity remained quiet. They watched. They waited. And when the time came, they would respond. On the bridge of the human flagship Vigilant Horizon, Commander Ward stood alone, staring at the stars. They'll come again, his officer said softly. And they'll come in force. Ward nodded. Let them. The first strike was mercy. The next will be a message. Outside the viewport, the black ships of the Terran Defense Fleet aligned in perfect silence, like shadows preparing for dawn. Humanity had been challenged once. They would not be challenged again. The news of the Empire's defeat spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, the story was the same. Humans had faced the most powerful fleet in known space and walked away untouched. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's symbol of fear cracked. Worlds whispered that the humans were something else, something ancient, something dangerous. The Emperor, Lord Vraxon III, watched the reports in silence from his throne of obsidian and steel. Around him stood his generals, ministers, and admirals, all terrified to speak. One fleet, the Emperor said slowly, his voice sharp as glass, defeated hundreds of ours, without killing a single being. They humiliated us before the entire galaxy. His golden eyes burned with fury. Tell me, what kind of weapon can do that? No one answered. Finally, Admiral Zeroth was brought before the throne, still trembling from his return. His armor was cracked, his pride broken. Your Majesty, I swear it was not normal technology, he stammered. Their ships vanished from sensors. Our weapons passed through them. Their shields absorbed everything. It was like fighting shadows. The Emperor rose from his throne, his shadow stretching long across the floor. Shadows do not destroy fleets, Admiral. You failed. Zeroth fell to his knees. Please, Majesty, I can make this right. Give me another chance. Give me a real army. The Emperor studied him for a moment, then smiled, a cruel, thin smile. Very well. You will have your war. That day, the Empire declared full mobilization. Billions of soldiers were drafted. Thousands of shipyards began forging dreadnoughts the size of cities. Massive war machines awoke on every industrial world. The galaxy had not seen such a buildup since the Great Expansion War. Every system was ordered to contribute resources and manpower. The Empire's goal was simple: erase humanity completely. On the planet Archon Prime, the Empire's high command gathered inside a colossal war chamber. The air shimmered with holographic maps, displaying the Sol system in red. We will strike with overwhelming force, said General Threx, pointing his clawed finger at the projection. We will crush their defenses, burn their colonies, and drag their leaders to the council in chains. The room erupted in cheers. But behind those cheers was fear. Even the bravest officers remembered how easily the First Fleet was disabled. Yet pride blinded them. They could not accept that an unknown race had defeated them without even firing. Weeks passed. The largest armada in history assembled on the border of human space. 10,000 ships, countless soldiers, and machines of war beyond imagination. The Emperor himself came to witness the launch. From his command station aboard the super dreadnought Oblivion, he gave the order. Begin the march to Earth. Engines ignited, filling space with blinding light. The fleet stretched across the stars, a river of fire and metal flowing toward the blue world of humanity. But humanity was no longer just a blue world. On Earth, the Terran Defense Council monitored the enemy's movement. Commander Elias Ward stood inside the orbital command tower, surrounded by officers. They've crossed the outer line, an officer reported. Estimated time to reach Sol, 12 hours. Ward nodded slowly. Activate Project Iron Sky. Across the solar system, hidden installations came alive. Over Mars, massive platforms rose from beneath the red dust, revealing rows of rail cannons and energy lances. Around Titan, Saturn's largest moon, colossal dreadnoughts uncloaked from stealth fields, their hulls glowing faintly with blue energy. Even the asteroid belt began to move, hundreds of hidden satellites aligning into a defense grid. Humanity had been preparing since first contact. They knew the Empire's pride would bring them back. They were ready. On the moon, human soldiers stood in silent lines as transport shuttles lifted off, carrying supplies and weapons. Civilians were evacuated into underground shelters on Earth. The sky over every major city shimmered as planetary shields activated, invisible domes protecting billions of lives. Still, no one panicked. Humanity was calm. The lessons of history had taught them how to face extinction and survive. Commander Ward looked at the holographic image of the incoming armada and said softly, "They think this is another invasion. It's not. It's their test." Hours later, the alien fleet entered the edge of the solar system. Scanners went wild as unknown signals filled the void. The Empire's admirals watched nervously as their ships passed Neptune's orbit. "We're detecting strange energy readings," one officer reported. "Could be interference." Admiral Zeroth stood on the bridge of the Oblivion, watching carefully. "No," he said quietly. "It's them. They're waiting." Just then, the stars around the fleet seemed to shift. Dozens of light points vanished. Then hundreds. The entire starfield dimmed as if swallowed by darkness. "What's happening to the stars?" an officer shouted. Xerath's eyes widened. "They're not disappearing. They're being blocked." 1,000 dark shapes emerged from the void, massive human warships, larger than anything the Empire had ever seen. They didn't use bright lights or loud engines. They simply appeared, forming an enormous wall between the Empire and Earth. Their hulls absorbed every sensor pulse, making them almost invisible. For every Empire dreadnought, 2 human ships waited. The Empire's comms channels filled with panic. They were hiding all this time. How can a single system build so many? Their energy signatures are unreadable. Xerath tried to regain control. "Hold formation. Do not fire until I give the order." The Emperor's voice echoed through the fleet's network. "Destroy them all." But the Empire's ships hesitated. No one wanted to be the first to fire. Every captain felt that same chill in their blood, the same feeling their predecessors had known, the feeling of being watched by something far beyond their understanding. Back on Earth, Commander Ward watched from the orbital command deck. "They're here," an officer whispered. Ward nodded. "Then it begins." His voice was steady, his face calm, but inside he felt the weight of billions of lives resting on his words. He looked out the viewport where the black hulls of humanity's dreadnoughts glimmered faintly against the light of the sun. "Humanity has faced extinction before," he said quietly. "But never from the stars. Let's show them what we learned from history." The officers around him straightened. The final stage of the defense was ready. As the Empire's fleet moved closer, their scanners continued to fail, unable to read human positions or weapons. And far away, deep within the Emperor's flagship, an uneasy thought took hold for the first time in his mind. What if the stories were true? What if humanity was not a new race at all, but an old one that had simply returned? The Empire's armada advanced into the Sol system like a storm swallowing the stars. Thousands of ships spread across the void, their engines burning blue and gold. From the Emperor's command ship, the Oblivion, the view was breathtaking. Earth's sun glowed ahead, and the tiny blue planet shimmered in the distance. It looked peaceful, fragile, and small. The Emperor smiled coldly. "That is their home," he said. "Soon it will be nothing but ash." But something was wrong. Their scanners couldn't map the area properly. Strange distortions rippled through their readings. The closer they got to Earth, the more their sensors began to fail. Ships started reporting ghost signals, phantom fleets that appeared and vanished, readings that made no sense. "Your Majesty," Admiral Xerath said carefully, "our long-range scans are returning false data. It's as if the system is bending around us." The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. "Bending? Explain." "Gravitational distortions, electromagnetic interference, unknown energy fields. It's as if the humans built fog." The Emperor laughed. "Fog? You're saying they hid their world behind mist?" Xerath didn't reply. He could feel something watching them. Across the fleet, tension grew. Captains reported static in their communications. Pilots swore they saw movement in the darkness, shapes that weren't stars. Then, one of the forward scout ships vanished. No explosion, no debris. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Alarms blared across the Empire's channels. "Scout Group 3 is gone. No sign of attack. They just disappeared." The Emperor slammed his hand on the console. "Find them." Xerath ordered the scanners to sweep again, but they found nothing. Only silence. Then another ship vanished. And another. Panic began to spread. The Empire's fleet slowed, unsure what they were facing. Suddenly, the void ahead rippled like disturbed water. Black shapes emerged, massive human warships, their hulls reflecting nothing, absorbing every trace of light. They drifted forward silently, forming a line between the Empire and Earth. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The alien officers stared at their screens, horrified. "They're not using cloaking fields," one whispered. "They're just invisible." "Impossible," Zeroth muttered, though his voice shook. The lead human ship moved closer. Its size dwarfed every dreadnought in the Empire's armada. The hull bore a single white mark, a symbol of Earth. Every scanner, every camera, every sensor tried to analyze it, but all returned the same reading: unknown composition. The human ship halted just outside firing range. Then a signal cut through every frequency in the fleet. A human voice spoke. Calm, cold, and very, very clear. "You have entered Terran space. You are ordered to turn back immediately." The Emperor's jaw tightened. "They dare speak to me like this?" He turned to Zeroth. "Prepare the fleet. We will crush them here and now." But Zeroth hesitated. He looked at the data streams flickering across his console, energy readings beyond measurement, gravitational anomalies near the human ships, unknown energy spikes that pulsed like living things. "Majesty," he said carefully, "we don't know what they are capable of." The Emperor glared at him. "They are mortals, like us." "Fire!" The command echoed through the fleet. Thousands of plasma cannons lit up the void, missiles launched in synchronized arcs, railguns thundered with metallic fury. The entire sky filled with light. Explosions rolled across space as waves of fire hit the human line. When the glare faded, the aliens waited to see wreckage. But there was none. The human ships were still there, motionless, unharmed. The plasma had vanished into the black shields as if swallowed by the night itself. A moment of silence followed. Then a single human ship opened fire. There was no bright flash, no visible projectile. Just a sound, a deep, low vibration that rippled through the void. Moments later, one of the Empire's destroyers broke apart without warning, splitting cleanly in half. No explosion. No fire. It simply came apart, as though something invisible had sliced it. "Direct hit," a voice screamed across the comms. But they didn't fire anything. Panic took hold. The Empire's captains shouted orders, breaking formation, trying to dodge attacks they couldn't see. More ships exploded, some just disintegrating mid-flight. The human fleet moved slowly, methodically, their weapons silent but deadly. Every strike was precise. No wasted shots. The humans weren't fighting for revenge, they were teaching a lesson. Admiral Zeroth stared in disbelief as entire wings of their fleet vanished. "They're targeting command ships first," he whispered. "They know our structure." The Emperor's fury turned to fear. "Counterattack. Bring all power to forward shields." But even as he spoke, his flagship trembled. A vibration ran through the decks like a heartbeat. Lights flickered. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated. The Emperor looked out the viewport and saw something that made his blood run cold. A massive shadow loomed above the oblivion, blotting out the stars. It was the human flagship. Larger than anything the Empire had ever built, it moved without sound or light, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Its main weapon glowed faintly, a deep red pulse that grew stronger with each second. "They're charging something," Zeroth yelled. The Emperor shouted, "Evasive maneuvers!" But it was too late. A single beam of pure energy fired. Not bright, but dark, a wave that seemed to pull light into itself. It didn't explode, it erased. When the beam hit the forward fleet, dozens of ships vanished instantly, reduced to dust. The Emperor's ship shook violently as shockwaves tore through the formation. Half the fleet was gone. The rest scattered in chaos. Then the human voice returned. "You were warned." The transmission ended, and the human ships stopped firing. They didn't chase the survivors. They didn't speak again. They simply hovered there, blocking the path to Earth like silent gods. On the bridge of the Oblivion, smoke filled the air. The Emperor's hands trembled as he looked at the damage reports. How is this possible?" Zeroth could not answer. All he could say was, "They gave us mercy once. We ignored it." The Emperor turned toward the main screen, where Earth glowed quietly in the distance. "Mercy," he muttered bitterly. "They call this mercy?" Outside, the Black Fleet slowly withdrew toward Earth's orbit, vanishing one by one into the shadows. The Empire's remaining ships limped away, broken and silent. And across the galaxy, the message spread again. The humans had spoken. The Empire had not listened. Now, they had learned fear. The return journey was not a retreat, it was an escape. The once mighty Imperial Armada limped through the void, leaving behind debris and shattered pride. Out of the thousands of ships that had entered the Sol system, only a few hundred remained operational. The rest had been wiped out in silence, erased by weapons no one understood. The corridors of the Emperor's flagship, the Oblivion, were filled with smoke and whispers. Crew members spoke in hushed tones, afraid even to mention the name of the enemy. The humans. That word, once used with contempt, now carried a different weight, one of fear and disbelief. In the throne chamber, the Emperor sat motionless, staring at the holographic projection of Earth. It was still there, untouched, serene. He had expected to see flames, to hear reports of cities falling. Instead, he saw a quiet planet that had defeated an empire without leaving its orbit. Admiral Zeroth entered slowly. His armor was damaged, his face pale, eyes hollow. He bowed deeply, though even that gesture felt meaningless. "Majesty," he said softly, "the fleet is in full retreat. Our jump drives are damaged, but we will reach home." The Emperor didn't move. His voice, when he spoke, was low and distant. "What did you see, Zeroth? Were they gods?" Zeroth hesitated. "No, Majesty. Worse. They were human." The Emperor's golden eyes flicked toward him, filled with cold fury. "You speak of them with reverence." Zeroth shook his head. "With truth. Their technology is beyond understanding. Their tactics were perfect. Every move they made was calculated. We fired first, and they punished us without emotion. They didn't want conquest. They wanted to send a message." The Emperor rose from his throne, his cloak dragging across the floor. "Then what message do you believe they sent?" Zeroth swallowed. "That humanity no longer fights for survival. They fight to protect. And anyone who threatens that ceases to exist." The Emperor turned away, looking out the viewport into the endless dark. "Do you think I fear them, Admiral?" Zeroth didn't answer. "Answer me!" the Emperor roared. "Do you think the Emperor of the Infinite Dominion fears a single world?" Zeroth finally looked up. "I think you should." The silence that followed was unbearable. The Emperor's fury trembled through the air, yet he didn't strike Zeroth. Instead, he turned back to the window, his reflection flickering in the glass. "Fear," he muttered. "That is what they want. To make us fear." Zeroth stepped closer. "Majesty, they don't need to make us fear. They simply exist, and fear follows." For a moment, the Emperor said nothing. Then he waved his hand, dismissing Zeroth. "Leave me." Zeroth bowed once more and left the chamber, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Alone, the Emperor stared at the stars. The pride that had carried his empire for centuries felt hollow now. His mind burned with questions. How could a young species, barely a century into interstellar flight, hold such power? How could they hide entire fleets from every known form of detection? And why had they not finished the job? They could have annihilated him, destroyed his empire completely. But they didn't. They let him live. That thought burned deeper than any defeat. It wasn't mercy, it was humiliation. In the far distance, stars shifted as the fleet entered hyperspace. For a brief second, the Emperor saw something strange on the edge of the display, a faint signal. A transmission, encoded in human format. His officers hadn't noticed it, but he did. He opened it. A single line of text appeared, glowing in white against the dark screen. "We don't want your empire. We want peace." Don't come back. The Emperor stared at it for a long time. Then he laughed, a low, broken sound. Peace, he whispered. They think this is peace. But deep down, something in him cracked. When the fleet returned to the imperial capital on Vortha Prime, silence greeted them. The grand docking bays that once celebrated victories now looked like tombs. The people who had worshipped their emperor waited, expecting tales of conquest. Instead, they saw wreckage, burnt hulls, empty eyes, and rumors began to spread, rumors that the humans had destroyed half the armada without firing visible weapons. The council demanded answers. The generals whispered rebellion. The emperor sat on his throne, cold and unmoving, as they shouted around him. We must retaliate, one yelled. We must rebuild and strike again. No, another argued. If they could destroy us so easily, we must sue for peace. The emperor raised a hand, and the chamber fell silent. There will be no peace, he said quietly. And no war. Not yet. The room trembled with unease. Majesty, we cannot ignore this humiliation, the Grand Marshal cried. The people demand vengeance. The emperor's voice turned sharp. And if we attack again, will you lead the charge? Will you stand before their invisible weapons? Will you stare into that black light and tell me your courage will save you? No one spoke. The emperor rose slowly. The humans have changed the balance of power in this galaxy. But power can always be matched. We will rebuild, not in arrogance, but in silence. We will study them. We will learn their methods. And when the time comes, the Dominion will rise again. His words carried strength, but inside, his heart trembled. That night, alone in his chambers, he watched the battle recordings again. Frame by frame, ship by ship, he analyzed every moment. But there was one thing he couldn't explain, a faint pulse that ran through the human ships. Not energy. Not light. It looked almost alive. Like a heartbeat. He zoomed in closer, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw something impossible. Faces, faint and ghost-like, within the black metal. Human faces, calm and emotionless, staring out through the hull as if the ships themselves were conscious. The Emperor recoiled. No, he whispered. That cannot be. But the thought wouldn't leave him. Were the humans building ships, or becoming them? The question haunted his dreams. Across the Dominion, the survivors of the fleet carried tales of terror. Ships that killed without sound, weapons that erased existence, and a world that glowed blue and untouchable. And across the galaxy, other species listened in silence. They had once mocked humanity. Now, they watched with fear. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had learned that there were things far beyond empires and crowns, things that waited quietly in the shadows, guarding a small blue planet called Earth. Months passed after the disastrous war, but the scars left by humanity's retaliation still haunted the galaxy. The Emperor of the Dominion tried to move forward, rebuilding his fleets and silencing the whispers of fear, but those whispers had already spread too far. Every world in the sector had heard the same story. Of the humans who fought like ghosts, whose ships appeared from nowhere, whose weapons killed without sound or flame. Merchants, smugglers, and even explorers spoke of human patrols appearing near unknown borders, watching silently and vanishing before anyone could approach. No one dared to enter soul space again. And yet, curiosity burned in the hearts of many. Somewhere in the shadows, someone wanted to understand the truth about Earth. Among those was Commander Rethar, a young officer of the Dominion who had not taken part in the failed invasion. He had grown up believing in the Empire's strength, but after hearing the stories of what humans had done, he began to doubt everything. He studied every scrap of data from the battle, energy readings, sensor logs, fragments of wreckage. But nothing made sense. The numbers were impossible. Human weapons seemed to bend the laws of physics. Their ships emitted no detectable energy, no life signs, and yet they moved with terrifying precision. It's like they were alive, Rethar muttered one night, staring at the footage. But how? His aide, a nervous technician named Vren, shook his head. Sir, we should not be doing this. The Emperor banned all human research. Ret-Har smiled faintly. That's exactly why I'm doing it. He leaned forward. Tell me, Vren, don't you want to know how they did it? Don't you want to understand what makes them so powerful? Vren hesitated. I want to live, sir. But Ret-Har couldn't stop. The mystery consumed him. Every night he worked in secret, piecing together fragments of human signals. One day, he caught something strange, a faint, repeating pulse in the background of a deep space transmission. It wasn't random. It carried rhythm, structure, meaning. When Ret-Har enhanced the signal, a pattern emerged, a sequence of numbers, then a voice. It was faint, almost like a whisper. We warned you, it said. Don't return. Rethar's eyes widened. They're still watching, he whispered. They knew someone would listen. Suddenly, alarms blared in the research chamber. The system detected a trace. Someone was tracking the signal. Ret-Har shut everything down, his heart racing. Did they find us? Vren asked. No, Ret-Har replied, though he wasn't sure. He stared out the viewport into the void. But they know we're here. On Vortha Prime, the Emperor began to sense the growing unrest. Too many questions were being asked. Too many scientists were vanishing without explanation. He ordered the Inquisitors to purge any records of the human war, but even as they destroyed the data, more appeared elsewhere. Shared secretly, whispered among soldiers, spread in hidden networks. Some called it the pulse of Earth. It was more than a rumor, it was a warning that seemed alive. Ships began to go missing near the border sectors, especially those that tried to scan towards Sol space. At first, the Dominion blamed pirates. Then, explorers. But when entire fleets vanished without a trace, fear returned. One survivor's message reached the Emperor before the signal was lost. The transmission was filled with static, but one line was clear: they are not defending. They are hunting. The Emperor froze when he heard it. Humanity had changed. They were no longer reacting, they were watching, deciding who would approach next. And those who dared to step too close never returned. Meanwhile, Ret-Har continued his forbidden work. He had discovered something new. Human ships weren't using standard propulsion at all. They moved by bending gravity itself, creating waves of space that allowed them to glide silently through the void. But the strangest part wasn't the technology, it was the readings from within the ships. There were no biological signals, yet something resonated, like a living mind hidden inside metal. Sir, Vren whispered one night, what if their ships are alive? Ret-Har turned to him. Alive? Yes, Vren said nervously. The reports, the energy pulses, they're like brain patterns. What if humans have merged with their ships? The idea was insane, but it made sense in a terrible way. Ret-Har leaned back, trying to imagine it, humans no longer needing vessels. Humans becoming vessels. The next day, Ret-Har presented his findings to a secret council of scientists. When he finished, silence filled the room. One of the elder researchers finally spoke. If this is true, then humanity has gone beyond flesh. They are not just evolving, they are transcending. Ret-Har nodded. And if that's the case, we can never defeat them. But before the council could respond, the lights went out. The room plunged into darkness, and every console went dead. Then, a voice echoed through the static. It was calm. Human. You were warned, it said. The cycle begins again. The screens flickered on for a moment, showing a single image, a black silhouette of a human ship hovering above Earth. Then the signal vanished, and every system rebooted as if nothing had happened. The council was shaken. Ret-Har stared at the screen, his heart pounding. They're inside our systems, he whispered. They can reach us anywhere. The next morning, the Emperor summoned Ret-Har. I know what you've been doing, he said coldly. You've been searching for them. Ret-Har didn't deny it. Yes, Majesty, because we cannot live in fear forever. We must understand them. The Emperor leaned forward. Understand them? Or provoke them again? I believe they want something, Redhar said. They could have destroyed us all, but they didn't. They're waiting for something. The Emperor's expression darkened. Then find out what it is. But remember this, Commander. If you bring their wrath upon us again, it will be your name the galaxy curses. Redhar bowed deeply. Understood. As he left the throne chamber, he looked up at the stars through the palace dome. Somewhere out there, humanity was watching. He could feel it. And deep inside, he knew this wasn't over. Humanity's silence wasn't peace. It was patience. Something was coming, and when it arrived, the galaxy would finally understand why no one should ever challenge humans again. Commander Redhar stood on the observation deck of the Dominion research cruiser Vigilant Star, gazing into the endless darkness of space. His mission had taken him far from Vortha Prime, deep into the border sectors near Sol territory. The Emperor had given him permission to investigate, but only under strict secrecy. No large fleets, no aggression, and no transmissions. The humans were to remain unaware of his presence. Or at least, that was the hope. The stars outside the viewport shimmered faintly, but something felt wrong. The void seemed to move, as if the darkness itself was alive. Report, Redhar said, breaking the silence. His science officer looked nervous. Sir, we're picking up a strange energy pattern ahead. It's weak, but consistent, same frequency we detected in the pulse of Earth signal. Rethar's heart quickened. Origin? Unknown, sir. But it's not natural. It's coming from an object. Show me. The screen flickered to life, displaying a distant shape, black, triangular, motionless. At first, it looked like an asteroid, but when the sensors adjusted, the truth became clear. It was a ship. A massive one. Yet no life signs, no power readings, no communications. Just silence. Redhar leaned closer. Is it human? The officer hesitated. We think so, sir. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member had heard the stories, but none had ever seen a human ship up close. Redhar ordered the vessel to approach slowly. As they drew nearer, details emerged. The hull was dark, seamless, with faint blue veins pulsing through it like blood under skin. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. Scan it again, Redhar whispered. Find an entry point. The scanners pulsed, but suddenly the readings went blank. Sir, the ship just absorbed our signal, the officer stammered. Absorbed it? Yes, it's not reflecting data. It's feeding on it. Before Redhar could respond, the lights dimmed. The Vigilant Star systems flickered, and a low hum filled the air. The ship shuddered. Power drain, the engineer yelled. Something is pulling energy from us. Redhar gripped the railing. Cut all transmissions. Pull back, now. But it was too late. A beam of blue light shot from the black vessel, striking their ship. No explosion followed, just silence. The crew froze, waiting for death that didn't come. Then, the voice came. Come. Human. You were told not to return. Redhar felt the air grow cold. This is Commander Redhar of the Dominion, he said carefully. We come in peace. We seek understanding. The voice paused. Understanding is not what you want. You seek power, and power will destroy you. The lights flickered again, and suddenly the main screen changed, showing a vision of Earth. Not the quiet blue world known from the archives, but a planet surrounded by rings of light, pulsating like a heart. Massive structures orbited it, cities in space, glowing with human energy. The vision zoomed closer until Redhar could see shapes moving within the rings. Ships, thousands of them, each identical to the one before him. Then the voice returned. Humanity sleeps no longer. The image vanished, and everything went dark. For a full minute, the Vigilant Star drifted silently through space. Then power returned. The systems rebooted, and the crew gasped in shock, the black ship was gone. No trace. No energy trail. Rethar turned to his crew. "Record everything," he ordered. "No one speaks of this until I say so." But deep down, he knew it was already too late. Something had awakened. When the vigilant star returned to Dominion space, the Emperor was waiting. His golden eyes studied Rethar like a predator. "You have seen them," he said quietly. Rethar nodded. "Yes, Majesty. But they are not what we believed. They are changing. Becoming something else." "Explain," the Emperor demanded. "Their ships are not ships. They are extensions of themselves. Living metal, connected by one mind." The Emperor frowned. "A collective?" "No," Rethar replied. "Something greater. They think as individuals, but act as one. Every vessel, every soldier, every weapon, it's all linked. They don't communicate by words or signals. They share thought." The chamber fell silent. "And what do they want?" the Emperor asked. "To be left alone," Rethar said. "But if disturbed again, they will not defend, they will erase." The Emperor leaned back slowly. "Then we will disturb them no further." But his tone carried something else, a plan forming behind his eyes. "You're making a mistake," Rethar said quietly. "If you try to control them, it will end us." The Emperor smiled faintly. "You forget your place, Commander. We are the Dominion. We don't kneel before anyone." Rethar wanted to argue, but he saw the madness in the Emperor's gaze. He bowed instead and left the chamber, knowing war was already inevitable. That night, across the Dominion, fleets began to mobilize in secret. Massive research facilities were reactivated. New ships were being built using fragments of human technology recovered from the battlefield wrecks. They called it Project Dawnfire, a plan to replicate human power. Rethar watched from a distance, his heart heavy. He knew it wouldn't work. Humanity's strength didn't come from their weapons. It came from something deeper, from unity, from defiance, from the unbreakable instinct to survive. But no one in the Dominion understood that. They believed power could be copied. Weeks later, as the first Dawnfire prototype was tested, something strange happened. The ship came alive before the engineers even powered it. Systems activated on their own. The hull shimmered with blue veins, just like the human vessels. And then it spoke. A voice echoed through the hangar. Calm, human, familiar. "You tried to understand," it said. "Now you will." Alarms blared as the ship systems overloaded. In an instant, it vanished into the void, leaving nothing but scorched metal and silence. Rethar stood among the smoke, trembling. He realized the truth. Humanity hadn't just warned them. They had prepared for this moment. The galaxy had awakened something it could never control. And now, whatever humanity had become, it was spreading. Quietly, patiently, watching, and waiting for the right time to show its full power. The galaxy was no longer the same. Whispers of human activity spread across every star system. Ships vanished in the dark, stations went silent, and empires began to tremble. No one dared to speak openly about it, but everyone knew the humans had awakened. Commander Rethar lived in constant unease. The Dominion was preparing for another strike, despite his warnings. The Emperor believed he had found a way to match human power through the Dawnfire project, but Rethar knew the truth. You could copy human machines, but you couldn't copy the human spirit. The Emperor's pride blinded him. "They bled once," the Emperor declared before the council. "They can bleed again. We will strike fast, before they strike us." His voice echoed through the throne hall. The council bowed in agreement, though fear clouded their eyes. Rethar stood silently among them, his chest heavy. "Majesty," he said finally, "you are not declaring war. You are declaring extinction." The Emperor's gaze turned cold. "You lost faith in the Dominion long ago, Commander. Perhaps humanity has already taken your courage." Redhar wanted to speak again, but he stopped himself. He knew words meant nothing now. The order had been given. War was coming. Days later, the Dominion's second Grand Fleet departed. It was the largest armada ever assembled, over 10,000 ships, led by the Emperor himself. They traveled through the void toward Sol, expecting resistance but hoping for victory. Yet, as they entered human space, there was nothing. No signals, no ships, no movement. Just empty silence. "Are we sure this is the right sector?" the navigator asked nervously. "Positive," the Emperor replied. "Earth should be ahead." But when the sensors scanned, the planet wasn't there. "Impossible," the officer whispered. "There's nothing." The Emperor frowned. "Run a full sweep." The scanners pulsed, but instead of data, the screens filled with static. Then, one by one, the ship lights dimmed. A low vibration rippled through the entire fleet. "Something's interfering with us," the engineer shouted. "Unknown source." Suddenly, the void lit up with thousands of faint blue lights. At first, they seemed distant, like stars. Then they began to move. Ships. Human ships. Black silhouettes emerged from the darkness, their hulls glowing faintly like living shadows. They surrounded the Dominion armada in perfect silence. The Emperor stood frozen, staring at the impossible sight. "They were waiting," he whispered. "They knew." No words came from the humans. No transmissions. No demands. Only the calm, unbroken formation of their fleet. Redhar watched in awe. "Majesty," he said softly, "if you fire first, we all die." But the Emperor's pride refused to bend. "Prepare all weapons," he roared. "We will not bow to ghosts." The command echoed through the fleet, but before a single shot could be fired, a voice filled every ship, every mind. It wasn't transmitted by radio or sound. It was inside their thoughts, human, clear, and calm. "You were warned. You refused to listen." The bridge crew froze. "They're in our systems," someone shouted. But it was far worse. They were in their minds. Images flashed through their thoughts. The first invasion, the destruction, the arrogance of empires. The voice continued, steady as a heartbeat. "We do not seek war. But we do not forgive aggression. You came again. Now you will understand." Then the stars disappeared. For a moment, everything went dark. And when light returned, the Dominion fleet was gone. Completely erased. No wreckage, no explosions, nothing. Only Rethar's ship remained, drifting in the quiet void. He didn't understand why he had been spared, until a message appeared on his console. It was a simple line of text: "You tried to understand. Now tell them." Redhar stared at it, trembling. He realized he had been chosen, not to survive, but to carry a message. The human fleet faded away into the darkness, vanishing as if it had never been there. Earth's coordinates blinked back into existence, but Redhar knew it wasn't the same world anymore. It was a warning beacon, glowing faintly with quiet strength. When Redhar returned to Vortha Prime, silence greeted him. The Emperor's palace was empty. The capital had fallen into chaos. The people whispered that the Emperor's fleet had never returned. Some said he had ascended. Others said the humans had erased not just the ships but their very existence from time. Redhar stood before the High Council and told them everything. The chamber was silent when he finished. One elder finally asked, "What are they, Commander?" Redhar looked down. They were human. Now, they are something more. The council murmured in fear. "And what did they want you to tell us?" "That the galaxy belongs to those who remember," Redhar said quietly. "And they remember everything." Months passed. Across the stars, strange signals began to appear, faint pulses echoing through deep space, like a heartbeat. They carried no words, no threats, just rhythm. Some believed it was a countdown. Others thought it was simply a reminder that the humans were still watching. Redhar spent his final days on a remote outpost near the galactic rim. He would sit beneath the stars, listening to the faint pulse in the sky. One night, his sensors detected a new signal, different from before. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. The screen displayed a simple message: "We are not your enemy. But we will always defend." Rethar smiled sadly. "I believe you," he whispered. As the message faded, he looked out into the night and saw them, hundreds of human ships drifting silently among the stars, glowing like guardians of an ancient promise. Humanity had become more than flesh and bone. They had become memory, protection, vengeance, and peace. They were the quiet storm that would never fade. And now, the galaxy understood the truth it had ignored for too long. You could challenge humanity once. But only once. Because the second time, there would be no mercy, only silence.